Welcome to the Wolves of Industry podcast. My name is Craig, and today we're going to talk with Pom Tutt, who is a peak performance coach based in the Midlands. During the session, we talk about some of Pom's coaching practices, and he's coached lots of different people in lots of different ways and helps them learn more about themselves so they're then able to go on and perform at a peak level. Some of it is very personal. I found myself a little bit nervous with the questions that he's posing, thinking, God, if I was to throw myself into that, I don't know how easily I would give up the information that I hold in my own head from my experiences. And I suppose that is where the power is. It's a great episode. I took so much from it, and I know you will too. So check it out. This is the Wolves of Industry podcast. Right, Pom, thanks for joining us on the very first Wolves of Industry podcast. When we started putting this podcast together, there are a few people we thought, right, okay, let's get them together. They're going to be interesting, and valuable for people to listen to, and they're from this local area as well. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Right, first of all, I just want to dive into this idea of a peak performance coach, because some people may hear that phrase and just sort of think, well, what does that actually mean? And is it relevant to me? Like, you might have someone who's a leader in business, let's say, but they're not necessarily into sport and might think peak performance is sport related, or you might have someone who's like top level in business thinking, well, this might not be relevant to me. So what would you say? How would you define peak performance coaching for the listener?
I think peak performance for me is obviously the peak element of it is where everyone wants to get to. And what I see is that most people focus on that point of the pyramid. And this is where most people go wrong, because they're trying to perform at that peak level. But there's steps before that they need to kind of accomplish before they get there. And if you don't know that, then it makes sense. Like, that's where I want to go, to the top, right? And so I'll aim there. But if you haven't got the foundations in place, then it's going to be really challenging to get there. Because when things go wrong near the top, what do you look to? What do you look to fix? You can't look beneath you because there was nothing. You went straight there. So it's about starting on the ground level at the baseline and then working your way up. Nobody wants to do that, right? They don't want to start from the beginning. But most people have to, because we all started about 3-4 levels up anyway. And what comes before that is like the human side of things, like the identity, the beliefs, all that kind of stuff, all the inner work. And that's where I start. So whilst, yes, I'm a peak performance coach, the work actually happens way, way below the surface.
So there's so many like analogies that spring to mind when, or examples of this in other like parallel industries and stuff like that. So first of all, you see it so often, don't you, when someone goes viral on social media and they have a mega hit video or whatever, but then after that, there's no substance to it, or they don't know how to act, or just they have that 5 minutes of fame, but there's nothing of substance behind it. Is that a similar kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I work with a lot of kind of small business owners, and they initially come to me because of, I used to do like a lot of personal branding. I still kind of do that, but like that wrapper's kind of gone now. It's a deeper level work. But ultimately, what is personal brand? It's just an identity, right? Personal branding is perceived in a way as like, oh, that's business. But personal branding is just like, who are you? What are your values? What do you stand for? What are you all about? And then you can, when you understand that, and I mean, you've got things written down that it's like you've got your own user manual, right? Once you have that, then you can start behaving the way you want to behave, because we all have our kind of default tendencies, right? I always say like we've got like 3 levels. There's 3 versions of us. There's like the baseline default level, which you fall into, the bad habits, and you snap sometimes, and you're not always the best version of yourself.
You've been following me around, have you?
And then there's the spiral version of you, the one that spirals into that. If you stay stuck in that too long, you spiral down into the worst version of yourself. you know, oh, I need to get this done. I'll do tomorrow, you know, and you kind of, then you fall into that kind of pit, and it's hard to get out. Then there's the highest version of yourself. And we all have that. We all know what that is. Everyone has that. Everyone has access to that. The issue I see is that most people don't like know it. They don't know the details of that. Do you know what I mean? That they can't stop themselves in a moment and go, oh, this is where I'm behaving from right now. What does the best version of me look like? Oh, it looks like this, and this. Great. I can level up now. But if you don't know those things, where do you go? So you end up just kind of floating through life, hitting all three of those identities, and just kind of like, when it's good, you go, oh, what a great day. When it's bad, you're like, oh, it's just a bad day. But the way I see it is you get to choose, but you've got to do the work first. You've got to figure out who you are. You've got to look into the other side of things as well. Like, who are you at your worst? You know, the shadow side of yourself, and really kind of connect with that. And most people don't want to go there. And that's the hard work.
So it sounds to me like what you offer is, to start with, and I know there'll be much more bolted on the end, on the back of this as well, but to start with is just clarity. And I'm pretty sure, you know, everyone will have times in their life where they're just not really sure about, like you say, who they are, where they're going, what they want, you know, what they're meant to do. So in terms of like just getting started, is it a process of like just doing an appraisal? I mean, you know, conjuring up, lying on the psychiatrist's bench, you know, answering questions and reliving events? Paint the picture for me of how that looks.
Not really. I don't think so. I mean, there's therapy and there's coaching, right? And therapy is looking back. Coaching is very future focused. I'm in the coaching realm, so I'm very future focused. But you have to touch on those things from the past. I don't like to dwell too long there, but we go there for data rather than like, tell me about your childhood. Do you know what I mean? Like, we touch on those things so we understand them and bring them to the surface and understand where things kind of came from. But then we can move forward with it. And you just said something there, like we start with clarity. I would say that's a second step. The first step for me is curiosity, and courageous curiosity. It's like it's all well and good answering a few questions, but when they get difficult, like, can you sit in it and stay with it and answer those questions? And even if you can't answer them, can you stay with it to kind of go, okay, that's my job now. I need to try and figure out those questions, you know? And that's the most challenging piece of my work that I've found with people, is the next steps are actually fine. Because once you've got through that stage, you can get to clarity. You can't get to clarity without answering those questions first. And answering those questions the answer might be another question, and usually is, you know. So I always say, like, don't look for answers, look for better questions.
It's weird you saying that, because as I'm sat here now and you're talking about like shadow work and looking at, you know, the deeper you and all that, it makes me feel nervous. You know what I mean? I've already got this is going to be highly personal. You know what I mean? It's going to hurt. I'm going to identify parts of me and what I do that are unwanted, you know, that I don't like. What do you do? How do you operate in that you get that honesty, but also the trust that people they do hand themselves over to the coaching?
Yeah, so that feeling you just said there, I would describe that as like a nervous system kind of state. And that state is a little bit unsafe. So instantly you go into this fight or flight. And if you go into that, what you're saying is that I don't feel safe right now. And my job is to create safety through trust. That's through being a human, first of all. I haven't got this stuff figured out. I'm going through it myself. And I think that's part of it as well. It's like knowing that, like, I am going through this. I share that openly. I haven't got anything figured out. I might be a couple of steps ahead of you, but that's about it. So I haven't got the answers. What I do have is those first few steps. I've been through it. So when you say you're feeling a little bit like, a bit nervous, I get that, because I felt that as well. I also know what comes next. And if you step into it, what happens then? And if you take that first step and you feel that way, you'll go, oh, that's what you said. Right? So it's my journey. I've gone through this. I'm not, I try and stay in my lane the best I can. I coach from a place of like where I've been and what I know. If I don't know, I hold my hands up and go, I haven't got a clue, you're on your own. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think that's the thing that creates trust initially. And once you've got that trust with someone, you can, like, there's no limit to how far you can go. Because I think that's what it's about. It's about having that trust with someone to be able to open up and feel like you can say whatever you want and not feel judged, right? It's just an experience. These things happen to you. This is the way you behave. It's fine. Let's move forward. Let's see what those behaviors are doing for you. And if they're not kind of adding to your life, then what can we do to start moving forward?
We're going to loop back to the coaching in a bit and perhaps provide a couple of things that people can start implementing after listening to this. Before that, this seems like the perfect time to just learn a little bit more about your backstory and how you actually got into this thing that we call coaching.
Yeah, so I kind of fell into sport, really. I've been playing sports since I was, as far as I can remember. So, at school, it was sprinting. Any sport I could do, I'd play it. And at 14, I got introduced to rugby league. And that just changed the game for me. Back then, I didn't understand in what ways. Looking back now, I can see that it was more than just finding a sport that I love. It was finding the group of friends that I made. Even the guys who I played with at that age, like, we've got this bond that just goes beyond any type of friendship that I know. There are guys now who I haven't seen since that day. But as soon as I see them, no matter what they're doing, right, no matter where they are in their life, no matter where I am, we just go back to being like 14, 12, whatever, again. And it's just instant bond because you've been on a field with someone who's put their body on the line for you. Like, unless you've been there, you can't really explain that. There's no words to explain that kind of bond that you create. And that's what I was feeling at the time. It gave me a sense of belonging. And from then on, like, I was just hooked on rugby league, but sport and health and all that kind of stuff. And when I got to about 18, 19, I was at Warrington at the time, just playing academy. And my dad kind of asked me, like, what's next? What comes after rugby? I went, well, rugby. And he was like, yeah, what if it doesn't work out? And I just kind of went, well, why wouldn't it? Right? And then it was like, I think a few days later, I had an academy game. We stayed for the first team game. And then we went round to the club shop to get a shirt. And the guy serving me turned around and he was the captain of the academy team at the time. And I was like, what are you doing here? He goes, I work here. And it just hit me. And I just went, okay, I've got to do something. I don't want to end up in the club shop. You know what I mean? So I was like, what do I enjoy doing? I was a bit lost. I was like, I don't know. I'm doing this thing that I love, but what else could I do? And I remember being sat, I can't remember where I was now. I've been out somewhere. I was getting a bus home and I grabbed a Men's Health magazine. And at the back, there was an advertisement for PT, like a PT qualification. Back then, they were like 8 months long, like intensives. And I was like, right, that's it. I want to be a PT. And so that was the first step into kind of the coaching world. I started PTing. After rugby, I started coaching. So those two worlds kind of came together. And what I found was I had a unique way of coaching because I'd gone to kind of like a professional club at the age of 15, but without having the foundations of playing since I was 4. I had like 2 seasons under my belt at Telford, getting absolutely smashed by Northwest Counties teams. I didn't really know and understand rugby league at all at that point. I was just an athlete. So I was learning the game whilst trying to play it at top level. And so when I came to coaching, my approach to that was the kind of the spaces between like the textbook, like this is how you tackle step 1, 2, 3, 4. But what was missing was those bits in between that I'd learned like whilst playing at that level and not having those basic skills. And I realized that especially coaching in a town like Telford, where rugby league isn't a thing, these guys don't have those fundamental skills, from just picking it up and playing since you were like 3, passing a rugby ball around. They didn't have those skills. So whilst the coaches were coaches, probably didn't really play much, they followed the textbook, but there was gaps. Like why can't these drills get these guys to learn how to tackle or how to pass or whatever? And it was those bits in between, the things you learn just by doing it over and over again as a kid, and they get cemented in. So I started coaching those things, and I've taken that forward into all of my coaching, kind of moving forward.
Do you think, like, in your experience with everyone that you've ever worked with, like, what makes a good, what's the term? Coachee, I suppose. Like, what makes someone coachable or, get the best from coaching?
That's a good question. I would say being open, and coming in with a clean slate. So like a student mindset. We've heard that a lot and that gets thrown around. But what I mean by that is something that I say to all my clients when we get started is, in order to bring all of yourself to any situation, you need to bring none of yourself. Because if I come into this conversation kind of going, oh yeah, I know what we're going to talk about here. Like I've already closed off potential opportunity of learning, right? Because I already know, or I think I know. So if I come into a conversation and I'm like, regardless of what I know about this, I'm going to come in and act as if I don't know. That leaves like my nervous system, my brain, whatever you want to call it, like just open to just hearing that one little thing that changes the game. And from coaching for over like 20 years, what I found is that's the difference. It's people who come in and go, yeah, I know that. Like everyone knows how to lose weight, right? But when you get them to do something, or you want them to take action, and they go, yeah, I've got it. And they come back and they go, did you do it? No. Why not? Yeah, well, I know. Yeah. And they start making all the excuses. And it's like, they almost know too much.
Yeah.
And they've got to just take a step back and go, right, just trust in the process and follow the steps. If you know, you'll go, oh, I know that. So I'll miss that step out. That's a basic step. I want the good stuff, the real interesting stuff down the line. And that's not where the magic happens. The magic happens in the foundations, in the basics. We can go back to sport. The top players still catch, pass. That's all they're doing. That's their fundamental thing that they're doing. And then when they get on the park and they pull out behind the back pass, comes back to that kind of influencer thing again. It's like people see that and go, oh, I want to do that. And they step up on the field and start throwing these behind the back passes, and they're all going to ground. Well, I wonder why. Because you haven't picked up the basics. Do you know what I mean? So it all starts at the kind of the unsexy stuff, the basic stuff that you just got to, everything like the first few steps of any process, I guarantee if you've come into it, those steps. It's just, you just need to do them, and you're not doing them because they're too simple.
If somebody's watching this and they're perhaps not sporty, which I'm sure some people will, or have been sporty in the past but not sporty now, is this something else that they could use as a model or a vehicle to develop the skills that you were taught, then it led you down this path? I'm not saying everybody wants to be a coach, but it seems to me there's a lot of lessons and there's a lot of like vital qualities that you pick up through sport. Is this something that you've seen that's similar?
As in, just in life?
Yeah, just in life and the way people develop. And
yeah, look, it's all the same stuff, right? You can use the sport analogy because that's what we were talking about, but you can take it anywhere and just start from the baseline again. It comes down to you use the word appraisal before. I used to like test and retest in my fitness journey almost every 2-3 months. But I knew that, right? When it came to business, I was like, right, I'm new to business. I don't know what business is all about. I just went in, like looking forwards, and just kept grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. I wonder why I wasn't getting anywhere. And it took me far too long to realize and see the similarities and the principles. Yeah, that we talked about peak performance at the top. If peak performance is at the top, what sits at the bottom is purpose. So figure out what you're doing, why you're doing it, great, put that purpose level. But what sits above that is principles, right? The principles are the same no matter what you do, whether you're in sport or business. It's what's the goal? Am I moving towards it? How do I know if I'm moving towards it? Do I have those kind of KPIs that I know that I'm tracking? And am I looking at those on a regular basis to see if I'm heading the way I want to head or if I'm off track? And if I'm off track, if I do it every quarter, say, every quarter I can go, oh, I've just veered off track. I can get back on again, right? So it comes down to those kind of principles, those underlying principles that you could take anywhere and they would be applicable.
I'm just wondering now, Saya, like how much of what you do is actually in the implementation, and what I mean by that is the accountability. Like how much, the coaching that you're doing and your client successes boils down to just the fact that you've held their feet against the fire and you've made them implement the things that they're learning.
Yeah, I think so. I like language, and words are really important, right? So I don't make anyone do anything, and I don't tell them what to do because I don't know what they want. I ask them what they want. They tell me. I write it down. I go, okay, cool. Let's go do that then. When are you going to get that done by? Or we set a date. And we go, okay. If you need me, I'm here in between. But if you're good, I'll see you on that day, and that stuff will be done, right? I'll check in between those times. Something that I find that a lot of people struggle with is reaching out for help. And I have to make a point, and I say one point. I make this point about 3 or 4 times in our first meeting, or every point actually. Every time we leave a call, it's like, do you have everything you need to move forward? Yes, I do. Okay, great. If you get stuck, reach out. And I've got like a rule where if you are looping around something and you loop around once and you're still in the same place, like you're okay, keep going. But if you get halfway through that loop again, that's a point to reach out, right? Because otherwise you just go around in circles. And most people will just loop around and go, I know he said call, but it's a Friday. I don't want to text him on a Friday. I don't want to do this. I don't. And they make excuses. Even when I've openly said the messaging platform is there for you to reach out at any point. I may get back to you at certain times, but it's open at any time. And most of the time, I'll get to the day of our next call and they haven't reached out. So I'm assuming everything's good. And we get there and nothing's been done because they got stuck on day 2, but they didn't reach out. So it's then going into that and not going, okay, you haven't done the work. So, right, let's get to work. It's actually stopping and taking a step back from that. Like, what's blocking you from taking those steps? Because you know the steps. So it's not an action thing. It's not that you don't know what to do. It's there's something in your beliefs or something internal in your subconscious that's stopping you. So let's work on that. And that's when we go. That's like, I use the analogy of the bow and arrow. So you pull back the bow, you go in just far enough, not too far so that you snap. You pull back far enough so that we can get to where we want to get to. Okay, cool. Now let go. Let that arrow fly. And then we don't need to go back until we've reached the next arrow again. When we get there, if we can't move forward, let's go back again and let's see where we are. Because those same beliefs are going to keep cropping up at every level. Once you've passed level 1, it's the same level, but it's just slightly harder. Like there's more obstacles to kind of overcome, new obstacles to overcome. The the boss at the end is like just a bit harder to kill, right? So you just need to build that time under, like, if we use that analogy of playing the game, the only way you get there is by playing over and over again, right? You do it, you didn't get to the end, cool. What happens? You start from this level 2 again, and you go again, and you keep going, you keep going, and keep going. That makes sense in a game. But when it comes to life, the first time we fail, we go, oh, I can't do this. This is it. It's over. Like, I'm a failure. And we have these beliefs around what failure is. And that stops us from moving forward. And actually, when we understand that that's part of the process, like, you can't get there without falling down. You can't get there without failing. You can't, grow a business without putting out a launch and getting 0, right? Getting no one signed up. That's part of the process. What you do is you come back, you bring it in, and you go, right, what was wrong with that? Maybe it was the wording. Maybe it was the wrong market. Maybe it was just the wrong program. So change it, mix it up a little bit, and put it out there again, and just keep going. But we have this thing where we attach ourselves to it. And the failure of that project means that I'm a failure. And that's the work that I do. It's kind of separating those two things and getting people to understand that this is not about you or your worth. This is just, if you want to do something, you're going to have to figure it out. And figuring out means failing a couple of times, maybe a lot of times, and then getting to the end and just plowing through and just keep going. But keep going with your nervous system, right? I always use the example of, like, obviously, like, I do like breath work within, like, the nervous system. It's the first thing. It's the easiest thing to access. So when you do a workout, and if you go too hard, too fast, too soon, doing like a HIIT session, you gas out, and I'll say to you, what's wrong? And you'll go, oh, just catching my breath, which means that at some point you lost your breath, right? So it makes sense that if we're going to go in this path of fitness, that you do it with your breath, right? So rather than doing a HIIT session, how about we just start slower and go to the pace where you can still breathe and do the whole session, even if it takes you longer, right? And you're doing it way slower and it doesn't feel like you're exercising. Did you do it whilst maintaining like your breath all the way through? You didn't lose at any point. Yes, great. Now we'll build on that and we'll increase the intensity as we go, keeping your breath with you rather than losing it. It's the same with the nervous system. If we push in a direction like beyond what we're capable of, so, all of a sudden I go from having a business of like 5 clients and then I watch a Rocky movie and I get like, yes, I'm going to smash it tomorrow. I'm going to get 100 clients through the door. Well, it's just too much. And my nervous system feels that and it goes, you can't handle that. And it kind of shuts you down. So it doesn't benefit you from pushing too much. So yes, we want to keep moving forward, but we want to keep moving forward whilst being regulated, whilst having your breath still with you. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does go against a lot of the stuff you'll see on Instagram and that kind of, shoot for the stars and all this kind of, live your life to the fullest and all this kind of stuff. But what you're actually saying there is that's brilliant. And, maybe have that as like a long-term vision or whatever, but just be a little bit more realistic on what you're doing. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, when it comes to vision, I'm the complete opposite.
Right.
Vision is
big, bold.
Yeah, let's go. Like, give me everything you've got.
Yeah.
But the vision is something that you throw out into the distance once you've got it. Like a flag, like a javelin, right? You throw it out and you see it land in the distance and it's your marker. And it's the thing you look up to every now and again to go, am I still heading in that direction? Right? And it's the steps to get there. That's the thing that we break down, right? Most people go, like, I want that. So they keep their eyes fixated on that. And I call like my kind of ideal customer, like they're visionary but blinkered, right? Meaning like they're blinkered like this. So all they see is the flag. What they can't see is their feet and the steps they need to take right now in this moment, right? And it's about being present. And that's where the nervous system and the breath work kind of comes in. It's we think about the vision and we work on the vision and we're so future focused that we stay in the future and we don't ground it in presence. It's like, okay, cool. That's great. We've done the future work. Now let's bring it back to the present moment, right? One, how do you feel right now in this? Like, having set that big vision, how does it feel? And most people will probably say, scary, right? Like, really scary. Okay, good. Let's not get scared about that, because when we can break down the steps and you reverse engineer it, and all you have to do today is do the step 1, 2, and 3. How does that feel? Manageable. Okay, cool. Well, let's focus on that. And that's how we keep our nervous system regulated throughout this journey and not get overwhelmed. The overwhelm comes when we keep looking up and go, oh my God, I've got all this stuff to do, right? And we're looking at the entire journey. Will overwhelm me? Of course it will. It's about like setting that, forgetting it, right? And then bringing it back to the present moment. What's the next step I need to take? And just take that next step.
So I'm going to assume this, but it is a question, and tell me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming then that it's very much like a muscle, that the more you do it, the better at it you can get. And
yeah, absolutely.
And then my other part to this question is, what real life examples have you got of that? Like, have you got any stories that spring to mind where people have been struggling with that, but then implemented some of the thought processes you're talking about and have gone on to make, big changes?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of it. I mean, I can tell you my own experiences. I mean, I was stuck at, the reason why I understand this so deeply is because that was me. I'm the guy who's got his head in the clouds, right? So I think it's Gary Vee who says, like, you're either in the clouds or on the dirt, right? And too many people are in the clouds. You need to get down to the dirt and do the work. I was very much a clouds kind of guy. Like, I would see the big picture, the overarching view, the 30,000 foot view of things. And it all makes sense. It's beautiful. It's lovely. But like, how'd you do it? Like, what steps do I need to take? And I was the guy who didn't take the steps. So having been that person and stuck in that for such a long time and understand it so deeply, when I did start to take the steps, once I lost that, I know that, and got into that, right, just bring none of yourself and trust in the process of just take that step, that messy, like, you don't know what you're doing type step. Just put it out there, see what happens. Some people say yes. Now you've got some people in your program say whatever it is, and now we figure it out, right? And you do it messy. It's not the way you want it. Like, I want it to be all nice and shiny and new, and like, I want to have all my slides ready. Well, if I do that first, I'm assuming I know what you need. And how can I possibly know that before we actually get doing the work, right? So that's the work that I take people through. So yeah, I could give you examples of all my clients, because they come to me because that's the message I put out there. Like, is that what you're struggling with? Right? Because that's me. And I share it through my own lens, because that's all I've got. And so, yeah, as soon as people get out their own way, they can do whatever they want. I mean, I worked with a client at the end of last year, and she's in her like late 40s, early 50s, and her business has always been one-to-one. Never really had to kind of drive the business, because it's all been about like, yeah, I've got a couple of clients, it ties me over, it's fine. And she went through some personal stuff, and she got into a place where she's on her own, and now she has to make it work. And what that meant was doing stuff that she's never done before. Her goal was that she wanted to build this business that was a certain way. And it's like, okay, if that's what you want, we've got to start posting content. But before we start posting content, we've got to figure out what it is you do, who you are, what you're about, and share some of your kind of personal stories so people resonate. That was a challenge. I mean, there was like resistance to do any of that work. Like, what's this got to do with anything, right? No one needs to know that. And she just wanted to post stuff about what she does and her expertise. But the problem with that is that it's so disconnected from most people. Like, they don't care about, like, no one cares about nervous system regulation, right? Unless I share a story of an actual situation that I've been in where I was struggling, right? That's the bit they connect to. They don't care what it is. They just want whatever it is that worked for me. Will it work for them? And it's like, well, come and try it. But if all I talk about is nervous system, like I'll lose people instantly. But that woman now is like, I see her on my feed every day, posting videos. She couldn't write a post. Now she's posting videos every day. See what I mean? So it's having that almost like your hand held through that first process of going, look, you're not going to die. You feel like you're going to die, but you're not going to die, right? Just get out there, do it. Look at what comes back. Look at all the positive comments that come back, right? Focus on those and then go again. Because that's the thing that drives you forward. You go, someone just says something like, wow, that really hit me. That's me. I can't explain how much that can motivate you to go, oh God, I've got to go again now. You're almost like you're in there. You haven't got a choice. You've jumped in. You've got to swim or you'll just sink.
Yeah, I mean, but we are hardwired to like pick up on the negatives, aren't we?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And putting yourself out there, you can understand why people don't want to share that vulnerability. But do you think, is that where you see most change, when people start being more vulnerable? And as well as that, is it exponential, as in the more vulnerability you're prepared to show, the bigger the changes and the improvements and the closer you can get to peak performance?
Yeah. Look, my work's about identity. It's about being who you actually are, not who you were told to be or who you thought you had to be to survive. It's be fully you. And most people don't know what that means. I didn't know what that meant for a long time. I was performing for a long time. A lot of the stuff that I'm not your typical like rugby player, all right? I never really felt like I fit in the change rooms. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't having the same conversations as everyone else. I was there to do my stuff on the pitch, but I always felt like a little bit like, is this the right environment for me? Right? And so I kind of like molded myself a little bit to be one of the lads at times. And I found myself doing that in a whole bunch of different areas at work. You know, you've got to be professional. You've got to be a certain way. And it wasn't until I started doing this work and realized that actually, no, that's not me. Like, this is me. So this is how I talk. This is how I behave. This is the way I dress. And I'm going to lean all into that. And as soon as I did, it's alignment, isn't it? When things align, like scale electrics, right?
Yeah.
If the track isn't set properly, those cars don't move as smoothly. And that's what makes scale electrics so cool. Is you see those cars doing that figure of eight, and you're like, oh, that's cool. As soon as that track's offline slightly, all of a sudden those cars don't move as smoothly. And like, I feel like that's what my life was like. It was like I was going around this track and then I had to adjust to like jump to the next part of the track to be someone a little bit different, just to fit in. And when I realized that like it's about me, the reason why I'm not moving forward in whatever area that I want to move in is because I'm not being me. And you can feel that. People feel energy.
Well, I think it's tiresome as well.
It is, yeah. It's really tiresome. And that's, this is why most people like burn out, right? Because they're performing so much of their lives. You've got to get home. You've got to be the mom, the dad, the husband, the wife. Then you got to go to work. You got to be the manager, whatever it is that you do, the business owner, and then you've got all these different roles, these other roles, the other kind of masks that you wear, and different ways of being, and then you forget who you actually are. So a lot of my work isn't about kind of forming an identity or trying to be something or be someone. It's just remembering who you've always been. And that's the key to this work. It's shedding the layers of all the stuff that you've kind of taken on and letting go of that, whether that's beliefs, whether that's like things that were put upon you in terms of like, it's you can't speak up, because if you speak up, then people won't like you, or you'll get fired or whatever, right? It's like, if you speak up, that doesn't mean you have to be like a knob about it, right? Yeah. You can can I say not?
Yeah, you don't, sure.
Like you can do it in a way that is absolutely kind of fair and speak your truth without offending anyone. And the biggest one that I find that people struggle with is the word no, right? If you ask me to do something and I don't want to do it, I can say no and have a full stop at the end of it. Not, oh, mate, I'd love to help you out, but actually, I'm busy on Saturday. I would help you, but it's like, you don't need to make up stories. It's just no.
It's incredible, yeah. Just hearing you go. I mean, I think that was a little bit of me. I almost created an identity of being the person you could rely on. And if you want something to do it, like, give me I'll do it. You know what I mean? And even as far as my history was in the military, and I would expose myself to true life and death situations in order to help other people. It got that severe, and that caused all sorts of problems, which I don't know if I'll ever talk about on this podcast. But and it's been a lesson. It's been a sort of a campaign to learn to say no. That's for whatever reason. But it's interesting you talking about like the full stop on the end. You know what I mean? As in, that's it. And I don't need to explain myself.
Yeah.
And that's the decision I made. So, and then it's down to them, isn't it? Let me just throw this at you, then we'll perhaps move on. Obviously, that's going to create a response in whoever's asked the question. How do you deal with that response? Do you know? So
the response to
so let's set an example.
Yeah.
Our role play is my wife's asked me to do something. I'm like, no, full stop. And then she's like, oh bloody hell, you know what I mean? And she'll try all these sorts of verbal gymnastics to try and make me do it, to try and convince me to do it, And so, how do you deal with that and feeling like you've almost let them down because you haven't done it?
I think we're on a conversation now about communication, and it's one of my favorite subjects, because I think the issue we have is that we don't communicate effectively, and we don't share our truth, and we don't share our kind of like the reasons why we are the way we are. I have been working on myself for a long time, so I know my triggers. I know where they come from. I know what I can be like sometimes, and I know what triggers me. Now, my job is to work on those triggers, right? But one way of doing that is sharing those triggers with your partner and saying, look, this is why this bothers me, because when I was a kid, this happened and that happened, and I started to form this thing, and now I have a real, like, when someone asks me that question, I don't just say no. I tell them where to go, right?
Yeah.
And it got too extreme, and it's like, whoa, that's a bit of a harsh response to that, right? And so when you can start understanding each other, and you know where you come from, and you can approach that person with, well, first of all, you got to approach yourself with compassion, rather than judging yourself and being like, I'm such a dick. Sometimes, I can be like this, I can be like that. It's actually, well, you are like that, but there's a reason why you're like that, right? And once you know that reason, and you know your behaviors, whilst it's not your fault, now it's your responsibility to do something about it. And if you continue down that path, then there's an issue. Then that's on you. But once you know and you start doing something about it, then we're good. It's down to the other person then to be in that conversation and understand those things and share their stuff as well. And we all have different love languages, right? That's quite a good example to use. Me and my partner, Danny, her love language is words. And most women, I think, like words.
We've done this,
right?
our love language test. Hers is words of affirmation.
And mine is a head rub, or a hug.
Yeah.
Like it's touch, right? All I need is, I don't need you to say anything to me.
Right.
Like, if the launch didn't go as well as I planned, it's like, I don't need you to tell me how good I am. Oh, baby, you're really good at what you do. Keep going. Like, I don't need that. I always find that as being patronizing. I just need, like, I'm a bit like tense right now. I probably just need a hug. And I feel my body go from tense to, it might take a couple of seconds, but I'll just sink in and I'll just go, thanks, babe. Right. Now, what we tend to do is we tend to assume that everyone is the same. So I started off giving her hugs when she needed words.
Pat on the head and that never goes down well.
Was it? It did not work, right?
Yeah.
So once we communicated that, she knew not to kind of pep talk me, and I didn't need any words, just come over and give me a hug. I then knew that she doesn't need a hug or anything like that. She just needs to be told. babe, you're smashing it. You're doing really well, right? Just keep going. And that's all she needs. And I still don't get it to this day. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it doesn't need to, because what it does is it makes our relationship better, and we work. And the reason we work is not because we just clicked or because we're soulmates, all right? It's because we work at it, because we communicate with each other. And I think, yeah, you're right. Saying no to your missus might be not the best approach, right? But if you've had that conversation already and she understands you and you say no, she knows that it's because you can't do it, right? Because you're not able to do it. It's not that you don't want to help her. It's that you just can't, and she'll know that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. I think everything comes down to communication. If you look at any fallings out, anything that goes on where people have fallen out, especially friends and family, if you speak to each party, they'll always add stuff to the conversation. Like Craig said no. He went no. It's like, hold on, what? I didn't do that.
I did that, yeah.
Now there's intent now, right? So intent is really important as well. It's like, so what was your intention with that? Now, her saying no and just saying it as it was doesn't match up to what she's feeling about you saying no. So in order to feel better, she needs to add stuff to it, right? So we do this all the time, and our stories kind of change, or we make the other person out to be a bad guy. And actually, when we look at the truth of it, it's just, I said some words, you heard some words, I said them in this way, you heard them in a different way. So how about we communicate and understand what our definitions of these words are before we go any further? When I say this word, I mean this. When you say it, you mean that. Okay, that makes sense. That's why you get offended every single time. You know, I call you a name that I'd call to my mates, right?
Yeah,
and we're just like, oh yeah. And she's had a serious thing about that. Maybe she was bullied at school, right? And that particular word was an issue. Well, now I know that. I'm not gonna say that anymore, right? No matter how I mean it, right?
Pom, if someone started listening to this, how do they know that it's the right time to get in touch with you and engage in what you do?
If you're feeling a bit disconnected, a bit stuck, and you can't quite put your finger on it, most people that I work with aren't in a bad place. I think that's the problem, is that like, if you're like really in it, do you know what I mean? Like you're going through it, then you know you need help. And it's quite easy for those people. So if you use like, I don't know, someone who's dealing with substance abuse, for instance, as an example of someone being like, you know, really, really down there, it doesn't take a genius to figure out they need help.
Oh.
And it's just a matter of time before they reach out, hopefully, right? But the first step is that reaching out to someone, and everyone knows that's the first step. When you're doing well and everything's great, things start to feel a bit disconnected somewhere. Like home life's good, you've got the house, the car, you've got the job, everything, but there's something going internally that you haven't kind of dealt with because you've been so focused on providing that you forgot about yourself, your dreams, your vision, your goals, all the things you wanted to do. And that's where that kind of misalignment comes in. So that's quite easy to deal with as well, because those people, because they've got everything, it's just, they'll make space for it and they'll make time for it. It's the guys in the middle that probably have it the hardest because they're fine. And fine's probably the worst place you can be, because you're not really where you want to be, but you're not as bad as some people. So you're just plodding along and everything's okay, everything's fine. All those kind of neutral words. And for me, I don't think that's good enough. Do you know what I mean? I think if we've got one life, if you've got something that you want to do, let's do it. If you don't know how to do it, reach out to someone who can help you achieve that, right?
I remember a quote that springs to mind is good is the enemy of the great, you know, and it's like, well, I've got it pretty good. So, you know, I don't need to push on. Nothing's causing action. You know what I mean? Nothing's causing me to strive for more because I'm pretty comfortable. Like,
yeah, comfort zone, right?
Yeah. And that's what you're explaining it.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm not saying the opposite to that is jump out your comfort zone, like we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that either, because that leads to like high stress, burnout, shut down, like all of it, all the bad stuff. Because if you imagine what a comfort zone is, if we imagine like it is like on the Instagram tiles, it's a circle, right? That's your comfort zone. And then the magic happens out here somewhere. I don't believe that's true. It kind of is true, but the way it's depicted isn't quite true. People see that diagram and they go, okay, well, I'm here. I need to jump out and get out there. But if that's your comfort zone, that means the circle then, the end of the circle, is your edge. It's the edge of your comfort zone, which means outside of that, like you don't have capacity for, this is your capacity. This is what you can handle. We tend to live in the middle of that circle. What I'm saying is start heading towards the edge, and the work starts from the middle. Like you don't get to the edge and then start working, right? You start working from the middle out. And by the time you get to that edge, because of all the work you've done, you've grown already. So that circle expands. And the more you walk and the more reps you put in, that circle expands more and more and more. And before you know it, that comfort zone, that little circle that was out here somewhere, is now inside of that circle of your comfort zone. So it's not about jumping out of it. It's more about expanding your circle, your comfort zone, and expanding it. And that's the outward kind of explanation of it. What does that look like on the inside from a nervous system standpoint is that your nervous system can only hold so much because we haven't trained it. The more work you do on your nervous system, that starts to expand as well, which means you create more space, which means there's more space between the stimulus and the response. So when you say something to me that is potentially triggering, if I don't have much room in my nervous system, I'm going to come back and snap at you with my reaction. Rather than if I do the work, I give myself a second or two. I give myself more space to be able to respond. And that might just be just like taking in what you just said and just taking a moment to go, what was the intent there? Like, Craig's not here to bully me. Like, he wouldn't say anything horrible to me. Well, hold on, maybe you would. And if that's where I'm at, the next thing for me to do is like pose you a question and say, like, what did you mean by that? And you'll tell me, oh, I just meant this. And I go, oh, yeah, that's what I thought. And then we can carry on with the conversation. So I don't need to get triggered. And so the work really is about taking responsibility for yourself. And it comes down to that word responsibility. It's not what I initially thought it was. You know, it's the ability to respond. So what gives you the ability to respond is space. Giving yourself a moment to when you get asked a question, rather than before the question's finished, going straight in and start rambling about something completely off script. It's just taking a moment and going, like, what is this person asking me? And if the answer's I don't know, that's cool. But at least I want to think about it first, rather than just going, I don't know, without giving myself that space.
So every week we're going to invite viewers, listeners to submit local news, updates and events that people listening to this might be interested in. Now, obviously, being the first episode, we don't have anything, so we might as well plug one of your events or programs that's coming up. So it'd be really good if you can just tell people that are listening to this how can they engage with you? Have you got anything coming up that might benefit them, and how would it benefit them?
Yeah, well, I do a monthly breathwork immersion. It's not for the faint of heart, really. It's a deep dive, and it's designed that way on purpose. It's a 4-hour immersion into yourself, really, and everything that you're doing outside. It's bringing it and just being for 4 hours. And the reason it's 4 hours is because I've done shorter ones, and it's just not enough. We just need time to be in that place and that space to first to kind of like soften, and then start to kind of be willing to receive what's what the breath can do for you. And so having that time together, it's not 4 hours of breathing. It's a full, there's a full kind of plan in place, and there's different stages to it. But ultimately, it's about connecting with yourself, connecting with the other people in the room, and then we go in and connect with yourself, and then we share a little bit as well. But it's a really good entry point into my work if you're unsure whether this is for you or not. Like it's a deep dive in. It's we dive straight in. We go to the bottom of the surface, and we look around. We don't touch anything. It's just about going down, being curious about what's there, and coming back out, and just hopefully walking away with some insights, and just going, oh wow, I didn't know that was going on. And that's a great place to start, because that's when we can start asking questions and going, what's next?
And that person, that the thought of the deep dive, going down and having a look, not touching, but if that makes them incredibly nervous, does that suggest that they need it more than anybody else?
I think if you step in, you're ready. If you don't,
they're not.
They're not. It's easy for me to go, this is for everyone. Everyone needs this. But genuinely, if there's something where you feel like, I'm not ready for this, then you're probably not ready for it. And what I mean by that is that you probably just we probably need to build a little bit of trust. Maybe it's a conversation, like a call, and just to talk about what this is and what this isn't, and understanding that everything that we do in that session is optional. You're completely in control. So there's never a point where like you're going to go somewhere and lose it. You're in control of your journey. This is not about pushing anything. This is about going to your level and being in an experience for yourself and going as far as you are comfortable going. And as soon as you feel that this is getting a bit much, you can ease off, and that's perfectly fine. Again, this is not about force. It's about finesse. So it's about really kind of giving yourself permission to be where you're at, and not see that as I couldn't do it. I've had that a few times, and it's not about that. It's, some people have some amazing experiences, like one-offs where that's all they needed, and they're done, and they go off and they go live their lives, and they're great. Other people need a bit more, and that's fine. And some people go, like, look around going, I didn't feel any of that, right? And that's cool as well. That just shows where you're at, and that's the benchmark. That's the baseline. Sorry, right? It's like, okay, cool. Now we know where you're at. Now we know where to go next, right? So that's the first step, and then something I'm opening up. I've got my main program, which is inner self mastery, which is a kind of off the back of the breathwork session, is kind of diving into what we talked about before. It's like going into that courageous curiosity, getting clarity, and off the back of that, having the courage to be you and express yourself fully. And that in itself is a whole process. So that's the human side of things. And then I also work with people and help them with their kind of business as well. So taking that stuff that we've learned in that first stage and then expanding on that, because ultimately what we're talking about here is self-expression. If you can't express yourself or don't know how to express yourself, how can you express yourself in your business? Because the business is an external thing from you. So now you're doing something that's outside of yourself, where actually it's an extension of. And that's really important to me in terms of like having certainly a single operator business. It's really important that it's led by you, and it's your values, it's your vision, and you lead that. But you've got to lead that from the human first, and the business comes second.
Of course, we'll put your links and everything in the description down below. But I've just got to say, it's been amazing talking to you today, Pom. I've taken loads from this session alone. I know people that have watched this will as well. And I just want to wish you all the best. And thank you very much for being guest number one, heritage number one in the world of sport. And hope to have you back again soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Cheers.